little fancy.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, big time. It's a little quiet today, but
A little quiet.
we've got a few good things to go through.
Perfect.
You know what the rules of life are? There's 7 of them.
Okay.
First one,
Okay.
sing it.
I can't. That's Adam.
Never ruin a good day by thinking about a bad day yesterday. I was talking to Brian Stoltz, and he watched this documentary on who sang Last Dance with Mary Jane? Tom Petty. Thank you. Gosh. Anyway, he said, I thought it was a good quote. He said, most of the things I worried about in life never actually happened.
Right. True. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So ignore them. Don't listen to other people. Listen to some other people, but don't listen to other people that are, I guess, giving you bad advice. Live a life that's empowering for you. What's number 3?
Give it time. Time heals everything.
It does.
It does.
Don't compare number 4. The only person you should try to beat is the person you were yesterday.
It's very easy to compare in real estate.
Oh, we are always good at that. And then it's like that becomes a scarcity mindset, though. Because if you think like, man, Lee got that listing, that's one I didn't get. Whoop,
Right.
Scarcity mindset.
Totally.
There's actually more. There's plenty to go around. Stay calm. It's okay not to have everything figured out. Know that in time you'll get there. Are you still learning something?
Am I still what?
Learning
Oh, all the time.
all the time.
All the time.
Did you learn something this week?
Yes.
Good.
All the time. Yeah. I would like to maybe take a day off from learning sometimes, just.
Yeah, I don't know if that's possible.
I don't think it is.
Then you probably learn a lot, actually. Number 6, it's on you. Only you're in charge of your happiness. And number 7, smile. Enjoy it. You got it.
Indeed.
Turn to the person next to you and tell them something you're grateful for. What are you grateful for, Lee?
Well, Adam got to play for Maren Morris, which is pretty cool. And
You get to what?
Adam got to open for Maren Morris in Chicago, which was kind of started out as a very sad thing, and then
Why was it a sad thing?
he was supposed to play this show in his hometown, and he's from a very small town in Kentucky, and they announced it, and then people started calling concerned about what kind of show he would be putting on, if he would be promoting homosexuality in front of children.
All right.
So that took a sharp turn, as you can imagine, because he was headlining.
So did he just was like, it's not worth
So he just said and then the next day they called and said people came out protesting and were planning to protest during his show. So he ended up making a video on Instagram and TikTok and saying hey, I'm really disappointed, but I'm just going to have to pull out. This is what happened. Wow. And
But he adapted. You pivot, right?
he pivoted, but then it had the reverse effect, times 10. Then people got mad that they canceled, that they essentially forced him to cancel. And then Maren Morris saw the video and shared it and put it, commented, and then all the Billboard ran a story on it, and then it's just been madness for the past 2
You never
weeks.
know.
You never know
When you're going to turn around a corner and there's a really
we've cried for 2 weeks straight, no lie. Started out very sad, and then her team reached out and said, would you like to open for her in Chicago? And so we flew to Chicago.
That's pretty awesome. Good work. Y'all have anything you're grateful for? Anybody want to share?
Grateful.
Whoa, what?
That's awesome.
Is she as excited about that as okay, cool. I love it.
Good. Well, welcome.
Awesome.
Very cool. Anybody else?
We had a tough transaction this morning.
Tough transaction closed.
Yeah. Couple
Okay.
bruises.
That's number 5. Stay calm.
Yeah, that Bruce dragging across the finish line. It's great.
Yeah, awesome.
That's good.
But it's
Do you represent the buyer or the seller? Okay. Very cool.
you want to talk about it or no? You're
It was one of those things where it was a tap HPR. And sometimes in the roofing system, the roof doesn't break.
Yep.
So it's pretty obvious.
Attached HPR.
This one did not have that. And
Oh, I didn't have a break in the roof, so
correct. So it's all one system, 2 arms, and the roof needed to be replaced. And
according to the buyer, the roof needed to be replaced.
yeah, you bring it up to different parties, they all said it needed to be, and then you have the buyer saying that, well, we don't really want to go through with this if the neighbor side won't replace their end of the roof. I'm like, that's not how this works, because they're not part of the deal. Anyway, it all worked out. It took a lot more shit.
Good work.
That is my
Way to
fear
be,
with-
persistent.
the HPRs. That's my fear with driveways, roofs,
Yep.
any number of shared elements that we haven't
Yeah.
It's
dealt
the
with.
Achilles heels.
So you really, I mean, you could apply all 7 rules. You let it go, right?
Yeah.
You ignored them. You didn't totally ignore everybody, but you gave it some time. Did it close on time, or did it have time, or did it have?
Yeah.
You gave it some time. Did you compare your seller's roof to the neighbor's roof?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
whole shop of shit. My sellers was south facing.
Got it. Okay, well, there you go. All right, what kind of education we got? We got, there's a V-Talk today, Appliance 101, washers and dryers, fridges, washers and dryers and fridges, oh my.
Yes.
And side note, I was reading this little adapted children's story. I say adapted because it's like this little box set with my son, and the Wizard of Oz is in there. And there must be some copyright thing because they talk about Dorothy, whose name was mentioned, having silver shoes.
Oh. You know, Ruby Ruby Sunshine and 12 South. The real name is like Ruby Red Slipper or something. And in I think it's New Orleans, they actually give you your check in a red high heel. But then they got sued because of the Ruby Slippers. And so then they had to change the name.
There must be some copyright thing, huh?
Dorothy, I tell you.
So there's and then after the B-Talk, there is broker open. Shelby and Shelby have 57 Brook Hill Circle that listing they've got. So go check that out. 949.9 in the 37215. So go check that out. Later this week, another broker open with Robbie Stone, and then we got 40X. How's 40X going?
It's going good.
Good.
People are still showing up, which is always a good sign, you know?
First rule, show up.
Yep.
Very good. So how is the market? What are you seeing out there?
What do you heard, Zach?
We heard. Well, I heard there's still low supply, so 2.7 months of inventory. I feel like a broken record here because I keep saying every month, I mean every week when we look at this, it's still 2.7 months. So there's 6,200 listings. That's more inventory by about 1,100 properties, 1,000 properties than there were actually, right at 1,000 properties almost than there were in 2019. Fewer listings by quite a bit from 2009. Last 6 months, we had 15,000 closings versus 20,000 closings in the same 6 months in 2019. So inventory is a little bit up, closings are a little bit down, and you've got, so the activity is going to be a little slower, right?
Yep.
Is what we want, right? And it sounds like anecdotally, it sounds like there's still not enough, but it feels like 2019, there weren't as many complaints about there not being enough. That's a mouthful. In 2019, I didn't hear as many comments about there not being enough inventory. So my sense is, the way I'm kind of reading between the lines is that buyers and agents are just not really finding the inventory that they want, maybe in their price range.
Yeah.
Right? And so we still are dealing with the price appreciation from a year and a half ago, and then obviously high rates. So, but the inventory is out there. So maybe looking at price range that's a little bit higher than where you normally would look. See if there are any
It's
opportunities,
negotiable.
because there's still a lot of listings out there that are putting something. They're testing the market for a week or two. They're putting it out there at like maybe $1,050,000, and then maybe the agent was like, "We need to be under $1 million."
Yep.
Seller's saying,
just try and see
"Just
what
try it,"
happens.
right? The agent says, "Well, all right, we're going to be fast. Try it for a week or two." So a new listing comes up. Maybe you cap your search at $1 million or 500,000 or whatever that barrier is. Go above that a little bit, see what's out there, and go check it out. You never know. Sellers love an offer.
Yeah. Showings and an offer.
Sellers love an offer. Buyers agents are often nervous about writing a lower offer. But as a listing agent, it's really awesome to be able to have something to present to your seller, right? Who's listed a house that's been on the market for a few weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, and you haven't gotten an offer? Do you ever have a sleepless night? Right? Would you love to have anything, something to present to your seller? Because that's the market speaking. So let's do that for each other, even if it's a little bit lower. Write it down. So if you need these are on parksandhome.com/backend. You can also access the Dropbox link there. Connie, Eddie, what do we got?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Should I show them?
Go for it. Why not? It's always fun.
That's all red.
Okay. All right. Here we go. All right. Whew, 7.63.
It's not 8. Right?
I love your optimism.
Yeah. I did too.
Yeah. I mean,
Don't.
This is the one graph where the up arrow is actually in red, not in green, right?
yeah, right? I know. Yeah. Well, I figure, scary rates. It's October, so, it's
Yeah.
a month for scary rates.
So from a seller standpoint, what I'm looking at is 30-day range. 7.631 is the highest rates have been in 30 days.
Yeah.
All right. That's a really good opportunity to talk to your sellers if you have a listing and say, hey, just so you know, rates are today the highest they've been in 30 days. Buyers are experiencing this. Buyers are seeing this. Remember that price we initially talked about? I think that's where we need to be right now.
Yep. And also, we're still doing a lot of the 2-1 buy downs.
Yep.
So, maybe rather than reducing before they reduce the price, they might want to throw that out there. Typically, a 2-1 buy down is going to cost a seller around 2%. So,
All right. So a $500,000 house, 2% of $500,000 loan, let's say. It's called a $600,000 or $700,000 house.
Yeah.
That's 2% of
10 grand.
$500,000 is $10,000.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lee Fund, for the quick math. And so for $10,000, you could offer. So if it's a $700,000 house, you could offer $690 or $670 or whatever. Right? That happens pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Or you could offer something and say we want the seller to pay for a 2-1 buy down. It's a $10,000 net less net to them.
Yeah.
And in exchange for that, the buyer gets year one a rate of
5.6.
5.6, year two 6.6,
6.6,
year three 7.6, and if rates come down at some point in that interim, they get to what?
Oh, so if rates come down during that, so after a year, say the rates are good enough, they want to refinance, then whatever portion the seller has paid for that's unused, the buyer gets back. So it's not lost money.
So they're getting it in the
Buyer.
form of
Like a
of
reduction
a
in
lower
the-
monthly payment, and if they don't use that, it's not use it or lose it, it's use it or use it.
Use it or use it,
That's
exactly.
awesome. Sounds like a
Yeah.
win-win.
Yeah,
Forward the 2 years.
right. So if they refinance before the 2-year period has expired, then whatever unused portion, basically what's happening on a 2-1 buy down, I wasn't even going to talk about these today, but
just think-
here we are.
People, we got to say this a lot because we've heard it a lot, but then when I get questions from agents, hey, especially, what does that cost again?
Yeah.
I know y'all have talked about it before, but what does that cost again? What does it cost a seller, roughly?
Approximately
what?
2%, yeah.
Approximately 2%. What does it cost, everybody? Approximately 2%, right.
So there's that $10,000 that's set aside. What it's doing, it's put in an escrow account. It's supplementing the payment. So when the payment at 5.6 that first year is, say it's whatever, $300 less. So every month that they're paying that $300 less, that $300 is coming out of that $10,000 escrow account to supplement the payment. So if they were to refinance during that period of time, then say there's, after a year, there's $5,000 left in that escrow account. When the buyer goes to refinance that loan at that time, that $5,000 would be reduced off of their payoff.
That's cool. I don't think I realized that. Okay, so the investor is not getting 5% less or 2% less and then 1% less.
Correct.
They're still getting their money.
They're still getting their money.
That's
It's just
pretty cool.
supplemented. It's
Got
just
it.
supplementing the
It's a little
payment.
savings account, a little escrow account.
exactly.
And it's helping offset. And so that goes toward, I guess, like interest and principal, kind of whatever
Correct.
just it sort of
Yeah.
tacks onto your payment without you seeing it.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Yep.
Is it up to the lender to push this and sell it? It's certainly advantageous for me to know about it. But you as a lender, do you speak with people who come to you for a loan? Do you talk to them about these ways of
Yeah, like get a
making it
pre-approval.
lower? or-
Sure. Yeah, when we meet with people and we're talking to them like at that pre-approval stage, that might be a tactic. I think it's everybody seems to be really using that now. And we may be talking to the agent about that as well, like, something that's going to just help them get the rates down. We'll look at all kinds of programs, like the THDA. We're looking at the rates at whatever, 7.6. THDA, that program right now is at 7%. If they qualify for a THDA loan, we may talk to them about that just because it offers a better rate right now. That and the home ownership program that they have for firefighters, police officers, emergency workers, that rate's at 6.5% today. So there are some programs that are, whenever we have an opportunity to talk to someone about, getting into a program with a better rate, whether it's 2-1 to 2-1, whatever it might be, we'll certainly discuss that with them.
So I've never kind of really understood the complete difference, because a lot of my transactions have been cash, just by nature of the way the market was. What is the difference between the 2-1 buy down versus somebody just wanting to buy down the rate?
Sure, no, so say the seller's offering.
The question, real quick for online people, the question was, what's the difference between a 2-1 buy down versus somebody who wants to just buy down the rate permanently, like for the life of the loan?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a 2-1
Great
buy down
question.
is going to give them the rate 2% below market that first year, 1% below market the second year, and then it's at that market rate, year 33 through the end of the term. On a permanent buy down, you might say the seller is willing to offer that 2%. They may want to take that and permanently buy their rate down. So instead of 7.6, it's not going to buy down as much. It's not going to get them down to 5.6. 2% might get them down a point, right? What's going to happen, though, is, I guess, the advantage would be if rates go up, they're at a lower rate, right? Fixed for 30 years. Disadvantage would be that if rates were to go down and now they're going to refinance, they're not going to get any of that unused portion back. Okay? So if they're using that 2% towards a permanent rate buy down, you've just bought it down for the 30-year term.
It's the long game play, right, basically.
Yeah.
So the cost of a permanent buy down is higher.
It doesn't get you as low of a rate, correct?
Yeah. You get less of a discount on your rate for what you're paying,
Got
It's more conservative.
but it lasts longer.
Correct. Yeah, but it lasts longer. So if rates are, continuing to increase, that may be better for the buyer, certainly.
Might even have to do with the type of the buyer. Like, I know some people who oftentimes like to set it and forget it. And,
Right.
I love the idea of refinancing, but, then you got to talk to a lender and get all your tax stuff together and get, it's like, if you're the type of person that maybe hasn't historically been really good about always staying on top of those things, that's probably a good, just knowing a personality, it's probably
Sure.
a good thought. Because you can look at something on paper, but if you take human behavior into the equation, it might be different.
Yeah. Well, and it may be too, like, how are they going to use the home? Are they only going to stay in it a couple of years and maybe convert it to an investment property? Buying that rate down permanently on the front end may be better, because if they were to refinance later as an investment property, it's going to be a higher rate anyway. I mean, just a lot of things I think to factor into that.
Very good. Good question. Joseph?
But you have your cake and eat it too, in the sense that if you were able to get far more dollars in concessions for somebody that's putting more than 10% down, right? And you're not capped at 3% of finance purchase concessions. Could you get a 2-1 buy down and permanently buy the rate down as well? Or no?
Absolutely.
Can you get a 2-1 buy
Well,
down and
I mean,
permanently buy the rate down?
What you can do, so say you've got more, you've got like the seller's willing to do 6% or whatever.
Sure.
Or the buyer's willing to do it, whatever.
The buyer's a little different.
Okay.
Actually,
Ooh,
yeah.
ooh, okay.
So the buyer can only pay a certain percentage without going over, there are some regulations.
Okay.
They only allow the buyer to pay like 3% in closing costs. So part of that is points. Once you go over
So this
that,
kind of is really a consumer protection. It's like where it probably started is so that lenders didn't.
and it doesn't
overcharge
mean
closing
all
costs.
their closing costs. There are
Okay.
just certain fees that are included in that. One of those being a rate buy down. So they're paying points and there are title
Yeah.
fees that are included in that. So we have to be within that 3%. Now, if the seller is paying it, You know, as long as they're not exceeding the maximum, which like say, I mean, gosh, they can go up to like 9% in some cases. So yeah, if they're wanting to buy the rate down and then a 2-1 buy down, yeah. So we can certainly combine the two.
Seen in the last 12 months, it's like you make both pitches. It's happened 3 times. They all took conservative play, took permanent rate buy down, so they weren't willing to hedge the bets over the next 3 years, right?
Okay, that's a good anecdote. Okay, they took the permanent rate buy down just because they felt like it's a safer long game. If you know, there's the sort of human behavior mindset, right? Of people more likely to avoid risk than they are to or avoid failure than they are to chase success, right? And so that's what they're doing. They're avoiding risk by doing the permanent buy down over the 30-year term, as opposed to maybe getting a better benefit with the opportunity to refinance. But there's more factors at play there. There's more unknowns. Will rates come down? Will they not? Will they don't? What's that? And refinancing costs some
Yes.
money.
Yeah.
This is like a 3-year period, if you like, couple with car and title with you guys, right? Then, that quote unquote discounted refinance or refinance no longer on the table if it
Right.
takes 4 or 5 years for the rate to fall.
Correct.
To where it's more comfortable. I mean, those were tough conversations I've had more
Sure.
than once in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
That's cool. So talk to us about this. So the advantage of buying now, because we've talked about this concept
Yeah.
a lot. You know, the market will continue to appreciate more likely than not. Only 4 years in the last 30 years has the market actually depreciated. And that was for a few year period and it didn't do it much. And then all of those losses were regained and
Yeah,
then some
and then
in
some.
the following 20 months.
Exactly. I mean, you all have people that are saying they're going to wait until the rates go down before they buy. How many of you? You know? So we hear that a lot. It's like, I'm going to wait. So here's just a really good
You
example.
don't tell them they're an idiot.
What's that?
You don't tell them they're an idiot. You just show them this.
Just show them this. Let me show you.
They're not an idiot. They're just scared and they're trying to be conservative.
Sure, of
Truly,
course.
what they are is they're not fully educated in
Yeah.
terms of the actual numbers. So showing them something like this is
So,
valuable.
yeah, so this example just shows purchase price 500,000, 20% down, interest rate at 7.5. Well, that's close. The payment's 27.97. And then if they were to buy now at this price and then refinance, say rates go down to 6.25, then they can still purchase at the 500,000 and get the lower rate later versus waiting. So if that same house goes up $50,000 or something similar in that period of time that they're waiting, if they're waiting till the rate's 6.25, they're actually paying the same amount as if they bought the house now for 500. So I mean, I think that's
All right.
to me,
So
that
purchase
seems
price
huge.
500,000. This is now, let's say 2023. Let's say this is 2025,
Or it's just like
2024, 2025, somewhere in there. Houses, I'm just saying it's 10% more. And still 20% down payment. Loan amount is now 440 because it's 80% of 550 versus 80% of 500.
Correct. Yeah.
And so, yes, it's a lower rate, but you're financing more. You have a higher down payment,
Yep.
and your mortgage payment is slightly lower, but it's 2710 versus 2797.
Yeah. It's almost the same. And
Versus
I
here,
bet
it's almost
they've
you know,
lost $50,000 in equity in the house that they could have gained.
There you go. All right, that's the key. That's the kicker.
So
So we're not talking about $100 a month. We're talking about $50,000.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now
And
we're
again,
talking.
if they were to buy now and refinance, keep that same home, refinance when the rates go down to 6.25, even if it's 2 years from now, whatever, then they're lowering their payment and they still have that equity.
Yeah. And if somebody wants to buy now too and keep their current house, they might keep
Yeah.
it as a rental, right?
Absolutely.
Right?
I mean, that's the
then
thing.
go and
Yeah.
sell it. Then you can kind of benefit. You've got somebody else paying your mortgage payment. You're keeping it as a rental. As long as you keep it, this is not tax advice, but as long as you keep it, the IRS gives you at every closing, there's a question, right? Have you resided in your house at least 2 out of the last 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to answer yes to that, so you're not paying any capital gains. You're not
Right.
flagged for capital gains. There's other things you might pay capital gains for, but That's kind of the big one, right? And so
Yeah.
if you stay there, if you keep it as a rental for just under 3 years and then sell it, talk to your CPA, but you should be okay.
Yep. Yeah.
There's a lot of disclaimers in there.
Right. One more thing real quick.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to start doing our Steadfast Social.
Oh,
Oh.
So we're going to bring our margarita machine in, and can't do anything about the rates, but we can feed y'all alcohol. So.
Steadfast and Stella's?
What's that?
Like Steadfast and Stella's.
And
Stella's, like a beer. I was
Oh,
just trying
Stella's.
to make an alliteration.
gotcha.
I'm still doing the free.
We're doing a
It's
reduced
not
cost. It's not free,
So what is
but
the
we are going
reduced-
to. It's typically about like between $3,000 and $4,000. We're going to save you in refinance costs.
What does it cost to refinance?
Well, I mean,
It's saving 3,000 to 4,000.
you're looking at the refinance costs are almost the same as when you're purchasing. So it's anywhere between 2 and 3%, I would say. Yeah.
You got an appraisal in there, you've got loan costs, you've got
Title insurance.
title insurance, and
yeah,
much, yeah.
You get a 30% discount.
You do get a
Did
discount.
you get a title
That's
discount?
true.
Yeah.
You get that 30% discount for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, hey, every little bit helps.
But when you, I guess, if it costs 2 to 3% refinance, if I tell somebody they can do that, I want to tell them realistically what it's going to cost. Not that they're going to reduce the cost. If it reduced by $100 or.
Well, it's really hard to say because it's each individual. That's why we kind of give a range. It's because it really depends on what their loan amount is. A lot of it is driven by that loan amount.
Because they might have paid down a good bit of their loan, and they, instead of having, a $400,000 loan amount, maybe they went gangbusters on it. Their house is worth $600,000. Their loan is only $200,000. That's all they have left, and so they've, they're only wanted to refinance the $200,000 out of the $600,000. That's a very different picture, probably. Than,
Yeah, or if they purchased a home that was, $400,000 versus a home that was $800,000, when they go to refinance that, the loan amount change, it's going to be slightly different, really, for everybody. So it's hard for me to just pinpoint and say this is exactly what it is. Yeah.
Or is it a
yeah,
percentage
so-
basis? So you
Yeah.
think, look, refinancing costs
Well-
2 to 3%, just like kind of that's rule of thumb, just like sort of buying costs are 2 to 3%.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe they
So
make a percent of that, or.
yeah, what we can do is when we're sure.
Right, versus, say, $500 on.
We can probably give them a little bit more specific when we meet with them too,
Yeah.
with each individual. If that helps.
Cool. Thanks, Connie. Connie Odie, everybody. Good job.
Alrighty. So we brought back one of our staples from Old Village from the legendary Bobby Noreen, the pickle. So what's the deal, pickle? Today we're going to talk about leasing permits. Who's ever dealt with leasing permits in an HOA? Jan, have you dealt with leasing permits in an HOA?
Haven't dealt with leasing.
A leasing permit with an HOA?
No.
Okay, well they're super fun. And a
A
lot
lot
of
of
times
condominiums have this. A lot of
Yes.
high-rise condominiums have this.
there's limits on investors. There is transferable permits. There's non-transferable permits. There's transferable permits only if the lease is ending in 6 months or whatever at Pullman. Like you'll have a very specific.
And so this is not a zoning issue. This is not a legal issue. This is specifically tied to each individual homeowners association governing documents.
Exactly.
So it's really important
Yes.
when you're buying a condominium of any sort to ask for and probably make it contingent upon or ask for upfront copies of all of the governing documents and read through those.
Yes. Every time, do that.
And it is boring and it's really important.
Terrible. Yes. So let me tell you a story. This was actually my deal, pickle. We bought a unit at the Ludlow a couple years ago during the madness, and it had a deeded or transferable leasing permit with it. So we wrote that in the contract. We got a copy of the original buyer's addendum from the builder that said this unit qualifies for a transferable leasing permit. So we're like, cool, we're all set to go. So we go to sell, and I email the HOA and say, hey, just wanted to follow up on whatever the process is for the transferable permit, because we're gearing up to list the condo. And pretty much I could have been speaking a different language to them. Their immediate response was, no permits are transferable, see attached bylaws. Look at the bylaws, and in black and white it says no permit is transferable. So as you can imagine, the panic that came over me as I was the one that helped them buy the unit. But I had this little piece of paper from the developer that said it was transferable. Well, as most HOAs are, they're a mess. They're unorganized. They didn't even have a list of the units that were being rented in that development. So you can imagine that threw a wrench into everything. So luckily for us, my client was able to get a hardship permit so he could just lease his unit and then buy the one he wanted to buy. But it could have gone very sideways because the bylaws say one thing, but the developer contract said something different.
Have the bylaws always said that and you just missed it? Or...
I don't, that's the thing, I don't really remember, because I think we felt confident on what we had with the contract that was in the contract.
Yeah.
And the builder, we bought it from the first buyer from the builder. They never moved in and they sold it to us. So builder sold it to buyer number one. We were buyer number two within a couple months. So for us, we ended up getting a hardship permit for him to lease it, and then we'll battle out the transferability with them later. That's kind of a battle for another day. But it is important to understand that even with that document, that's not really always going to override the bylaws. The bylaws are the bylaws.
Yeah, master deed, and those things can be changed.
Yes.
And sometimes homeowners are not really interested in being involved in the ongoings of the HOA, and they don't know that it has been changed. And so the real estate agent goes to list a property, sell it 3-5 years later, and they think, this is what it was like when we bought it. Surely it's still the same thing. They advertise it that way. They give buyers and buyers agents confidence. And next thing you know, you've got a situation where nobody's really read the actual latest and greatest Bible of HOA docs that say it in black and white, and everybody's going on hearsay and assumptions. There's a little thing about assumptions. What happens when you assume? Yeah.
Yes, very that for sure. So the key takeaway is usually they're not deeded. A deeded permit is, like it says, it is on the deed. So that is a much deeper process. It has a totally different process to get that in place. So that would stick with the property forever. Most of the time, if they are transferable, they're just listed as a transferable permit. But like Pullman in your development, it's only transferable if there's so many months left on the lease. Some it's transferable as long as there's a tenant in there. Some it's transferable, but you have to lease it in 180 days. So they really do change from development to development. So, moral of the story is, make sure if you have a seller that's saying their permit is transferable, or you have a buyer who's buying something that is saying it is transferable, always contact the HOA anyway, but especially in this scenario, especially if you're on the list side, to confirm that. Because if it goes to court, I really don't know, buyer beware, it's the buyer's duty to inspect all things. But if this is blatantly advertised wrong, where does it fall if it goes to court? Wish Lloyd was here to answer that.
It's easy to fall into a trap of kind of unknowingly advertising something wrong just by making that assumption. So read the docs. It's good reading. It's kind of boring.
It's boring.
But it's actually really educational. And once you read a few of them, you'll start understanding the patterns and you'll know where to look. And there's almost always a section that says leasing.
Yes.
A lot of times, if it's a PDF, you can just do, Control F, Command F, look for the word, just search LEAS, and it'll pull it up.
Pull it right up.
For lease or leasing or permit or whatever. So
thankful it worked out for me, but don't want that to happen to y'all. So
I had a buyer. I had a story as a broker. I didn't have a buyer, but I got a broker call several years ago from the guy had bought a place. He bought an investment property at the Viridian, and he had just closed on it 2 weeks before. And he called called the Parks office and said, "I got a problem." He did not have an agent when he bought it. And he said, I bought this property as an investment property, but I went downstairs to talk to the front desk, and they said that I can't rent it out without a permit, and that it might be years before I could get a permit. So I didn't know that. I need to turn around and sell this. Do you have somebody that can help?
I do, but
Yeah, and so we put him in touch with one of our agents, and but like that was an expensive mistake.
oh yeah, for sure.
All right. Oops.
All right, so quick little cup of tea this morning. We're going to talk about Printers and Bankers Alley downtown. So this project is located at 215 and 217 3rd Avenue North. It will be connected by a 4-story bridge structure located on levels 3 through 6, creating an archway, as you see right here, that will frame Bankers Alley and create a gateway to the district. There will be 265 residential units, 33,000 square feet of retail and restaurant space, 3 levels of underground parking, 3rd floor amenity level with a lounge, fitness center, and outdoor dog park, sky deck rooftop level with a patio, pool area, and lounge. Rubicon Equities paid $13 million for the giant half-acre site in December of 2017. Kind of wild. This local investment firm also co-owns the former Lifeway Christian bookstore building at Capitol View, and was part of the ownership group that revitalized the UBS Tower, which, if you didn't know, is downtown's second largest office building, which sold for a measly $135 million in 2019. So yeah, we're about to see a bunch of different.
Sounds like kind of a good deal. You get half an acre for $13 million, and an entire second largest building in Nashville for 135.
Yeah, just chump change. So we're going to have a lot of districts. I think we were talking about last time the business district, which will be like the Broad West area. So now we'll have the Bankers Alley district, which will be kind of cool.
This is cool.
Right here.
Very cool. I like it. All right, so tip of the week. Don't forget October is Building Warm List Month. So we got a little video I want to show you. It's 2 minutes long. And
Hello, it's Terry Johnson, your Master Ninja instructor, and I'm coming to you with your Monday morning action tip. I'd like to ask you, how are you doing with your business tracker, your hot list and your warm list? The chatter in the business right now, the chatter in the industry right now is all about there's no inventory, interest rates are creeping up, what are we going to do, what's going to happen to us? I'd like to suggest that we as ninjas take our hot and our warm list to the next level. So I've got a few tips for you. Jot these down if you like. Number 1, why is the person on your list? Are they really hot? Are they really warm? And then what I want you to do is I'd like you to go back in your memory and access why are they doing what they're doing? Is there pain or is there pleasure? But this is the level that I love. I got this from my good friend Gretchen Adams, who is a ninja coach, and she rates every person on her hot list and her warm list. So you know why they're on the list, you know if it was pain or pleasure, but is it a 1 in pain or pleasure, or is it a 10 in pain or pleasure, or anywhere in between? And then where the rubber really meets the road is you ask yourself, what can I do to help them? Is there an action item I can take this week? Can I call them? Can I do something for them? What can I do to help provide clarity for them to take them to the next level? What's the next step? So I want to ask you, if you're willing, to rate everyone on your hot and warm list. Why are they on there? Is it pain or pleasure? Rate it from 1 to 10. And then lastly, what action item can I take? One last thought. Remember, it doesn't have to be real estate related. It might simply be to take them a bowl of soup. It can be anything. But are we loving on our people so that they see us as their proactive, trusted real estate advisor? I'll see you soon.
thanks, Terry.
Terry.
That's pretty awesome. So, whoops. What is a warm list? How would you define it?
I'll let y'all answer. Yes.
So 6 or 12 months, it's a prospect pipeline. How do you know if somebody should be on your warm list?
Conversations, life changes.
Life changes, bingo, life changes, right?
Use your forward age.
What's
Flow.
that?
Is it forward?
Use your forward, yeah. People are more likely to move away from what? And
Pain.
move away from pain. People are more motivated to move away from pain than they are to move toward pleasure. Right? So people will they can love a house so much and want to go there, but unless their situation is painful enough, they probably won't do it, right? So it's really monitoring that balance through conversations, through relationship. What is their pain threshold? It sounds weird when you're talking about real estate, because hopefully it's not painful, but life is hard. And if you've got a 2-bedroom house with a family of 5, I guarantee you there's some painful mornings and evenings in there,
Yeah.
right? It can probably be pretty painful, especially if there's only one bathroom. So there's certain things in our lives that create natural sources of pain, and it's usually family growth, financial changes. Somebody's probably more likely to sell their house or downsize maybe if they have a destabilizing financial situation than if they have come into some money, right? They'll probably do that faster than they would if they inherit some money. Then people usually probably wouldn't run out and just go buy something right away. They'll think about it. They'll try to figure out what to do, right? So once somebody decides that they are, or once you decide that they're on a warm list, do you think they know it? Does everybody know when you put them on your warm list? No, right? Usually they don't, because you're noticing things from the outside that they may not even notice. They're just, you're seeing the pain, you're hearing them, struggle with certain things, and you think, I bet, you're making a bet here. I'm willing to bet they are going to make a life change. They're going to make a real estate change because of their life situation and their life change sometime in the next 6 or 12 months. I'm going to put them on my warm list, and I'm going to keep an eye on them. So rating them, am I warm or not? Am I hot or not?
Not
Hot list.
not.
At some point, if they move to, you start having that real estate conversation with them, and usually they'll bring it up and be like, it's funny, we've been hanging out a lot lately, but what's the real estate market like? Thought you'd never ask. Actually, I did think you'd ask, but it's a great question. And so then you can talk to them about it, and then next thing you know, a hot list is what? Somebody you can
Ready to go. Write a contract
write a
today.
contract with today, right? So you help them talk to Connie, they get pre-qualified, pre-approved. Maybe they talk about buy downs, they look at the market, they see what's out there, they look at the inventory, and now they're an actual real estate client. So that's when you know to add a prospect to your warm list. So part of the Ninja 9 is to focus on that daily. Not every month, but daily. If you really look at it daily, what you focus on what? Expands. What you focus on expands. If you're looking at those names every single day, I guarantee you will think about them. You might have a dream about them. You might wake up in the middle of the night being like, oh my gosh, I just had an idea. I should show them this other part of town that, I heard about the other day that has things that they might look at, right? If you're focusing on that frequently, if you see them at an event, on the other side of a room, you're way more likely to go say hello to them if they're in your mind and in your flow. So focus on those daily. In order to have a list, to look at a list, you have to what?
Have a list.
Have a list, right? And that idea of rating them, because you can't focus on everybody at once. So who do you give most priority to? You're not playing favorites. You're just trying to be, who can you help the most? You can use the Ninja database, use the Ninja CRM, the Park CRM right here. It doesn't really matter what system you use. There is no perfect system. The best system that you can use is the one that you actually use. And so, but 20% of your database should be in your warm list. In a perfect world. It's a really good pipeline.
Definitely use the Real Scout market. What is it? Value tool that we have in there, because it tells you when they open it. It tells you when they click for more information, and it's an easy way to call them and you be top of mind and it not be weird. Where you're like, oh, I haven't heard from them. They don't know that you know that they've opened everything and looked at their report 5 times. Maybe something's changing if they've looked at it that many times.
That's a great point.
So definitely use that tool for
Yeah,
sure.
that's a really good point. All right, Shelby and Jackson have broke open today, 57 Brook Hill Circle, 11 to 1. And then there's a class after this in about 10 or 12 minutes called Washers and Dryers and Fridges, oh my. So learn about appliances. I have a little appliance story. Our range, our oven, the heating element in our oven, like it literally exploded. Sparks and flames were shooting out of it. I've never seen that. I mean, it was like
Glad it
getting
was
a
a
fire
gas.
extinguisher out. And long story short, the way our kitchen is set up, it's kind of a small house. The stove is right against the wall, and so there's kind of looks like a cooktop, but it's a freestanding range. So the burners are on the left, and the knobs are on the right, so you don't have a burner like right up against the wall. Well, I've looked everywhere for a new stove, thinking I had to get a new stove, and anyway, I went to A1 Appliance, asked them, I showed a picture. I was like, have you ever seen a stove like this? They're like, no, never. I'm like, man, I don't know what to do. And I explained to them what happened, and they said, you want to spend $50 and do a little DIY project? I'm like, sure. So they looked it up, ordered me a new heating element. And I said, what do I do? They said, it's a Phillips head screwdriver and about 2 minutes of time, and you just plug
it
the
in.
new one in. I was like, awesome. So when you're in a tricky situation, don't be afraid to ask for help. Go to the experts. That's what you're here for, as an expert to your clients, and hopefully you can be an expert for them. So thanks, y'all, for coming. That's it.
Good job, Zach.